morning, everybody. Whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, or around the world, this is Coast to Coast. You got quite the hair going on this morning, man. What's going on?
Yeah, it's I got it up sticking up high. It's
Did you end up doing something yesterday where you didn't have the gel washed out of it yet, or?
well, I went to a concert last night and I washed it out, but sometimes like when if I sleep a certain way, it'll actually stay up.
I got
So
you.
and I got a haircut, which means it's not as long,
Heavy.
which means that it's not as heavy, which means that like when I do this and it just stays, which is nice sometimes. So yeah, I got the full mohawk going.
Nice.
Was a great show last night, though. Let's say we'll give
and
a shout out to.
Who'd you see?
So it was actually they talked a lot about Seattle. Interestingly enough, it was Alice Unchained, and
funny.
it had it had Brian Quinn, who was part of Candlebox, the one of the singers from Breaking Benjamins.
Okay.
And also the guitarist, I think the guitarist, or not the guitarist, the drummer from Alice in Chains. That also did it as well. So Brian Quinn, obviously, like it was one of these, and then of course my buddy Nicky, who has, he's just got great vocals. So it was an interesting group of guys put together, and they went and they did the one album from Alice in Chains. It was like a 30 years ago yesterday. That album came out, so they went and they did like an unplugged. It wasn't unplugged, but it was like a version like that, and they did the entire album.
Interesting. Weird fun fact is, so the drummer of Alice in Chains, one of his friends was one of my clients when I had my auto repair shop, and I always took on like random projects when I had it, right? And so I don't know if he had it on stage this time around, but the drummer for Alice in Chains has these chain drum set and cymbal stands, and weirdly I built a set of those.
Oh wow.
So so those are sitting in a studio somewhere here in Seattle. And so I did a full set of drum stands out of chain where I actually welded each link. So
I was gonna say that's not as simple as you would think it is, and it's got to be a certain type of chain. It's got to, because you can't have that move. Obviously, you're not gonna all of a sudden bang and then the chains fall down. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's got to.
Yeah. No, it's it was some time for sure, but cool looking. It came out really cool. So that is always fun.
I will tell you that those were not in attendance yesterday, but
it's funny because they do tour with them as Alice in Chains. It would make sense they wouldn't be for this one, since that sounded like kind of a unique collection of various bands coming together.
Right. And I would say that Brian Quinn, I spent some time up in Seattle, obviously. I think Candlebox has roots in Seattle.
It does.
Yeah. So it's and I've known Brian now for a couple of years, and he's become a good friend of mine. And it's I tell you, I get so enamored where like I am not musically inclined at all. You know what I mean? Yeah. I can't. I used to be able to sing back at a time where like I was just, I would have been a good karaoke singer because I never really practiced enough to be able to do anything more than that.
I got you.
You put an instrument in my hands and I break that instrument. That's how that works. So,
fair enough.
I tried to learn how to do the violin. My brother bought me a violin because I used to back in second grade. I tried to learn the violin. I literally took the bow and went across the strings, and one of the strings broke. I was like,
"Oh, that's funny."
Like the moment I got the violin, I'm like, okay, that's where that lives.
All right. So. See, I was so I could sing in like elementary school, And then I ended up with this lower register that I cannot sing at all anymore. So if you don't hear me sing, you're welcome.
Yeah, same here now. I used to have 4 octaves, and now I can't even do an octave and a half. So
yeah, I have a voice for the radio, and here we are.
there we have it. But yeah, it was a great show last night. They sold out the Ardmore Music Hall, so about 500-600 people were in attendance, and it was a great show. It was a great show.
Nice. Right on. And no, sadly, I didn't take a picture of that set. In retrospect, I absolutely should have, but yeah, I built
That
it
was
back
before.
in.
There was before phones had cameras.
It wasn't quite that long ago, but that being said, it absolutely was. I mean, it was back in 15, so it's been a minute. So
okay, there you go.
So yeah, but this is going to be a Seattle heavy show today, and mostly because we have some news out of the Storm, and it's not generally the news I get to share, right? Usually it's about, what we're doing on the court, and whether it is, making a preseason trade for Flau'jae Johnson or some career highs during the season. Obviously we haven't talked a lot about winning because they've been struggling to close out games, but there's generally a positive feel to where this team is going. Tuesday night was not that night. And to preface what happened Tuesday night, we have to go back a little bit further into last week, where Sophie Cunningham made a statement about trans athletes specifically, and not wanting them in women's sports, right? And so that's where this really stemmed from. Tuesday night, they play the Fever, and there were some fans in attendance that aligned with that viewpoint. And so they wore shirts and had signs. It was not received particularly well by some of the Storm fans. And so these were teenage girls, right? There were some fans that were cursing at him, berating him. One of them spit at him, right? This is not something you want to see out of your fan base. Then it continued to go as far as a minority co-owner also going that route. It was reportedly that a fan tried to trip them as they were walking through. Like it was not a good environment, and it has gone as far as the league has suspended the minority owner for 5 games. And I think there's only 6 home games left. And then a fine on top of it. So I reached out to the Storm yesterday for an official response, and their official response here is: we respect the league's decision to fine and suspend co-owner Celeste Keaton. We remain committed to creating a welcoming and respectful environment for anyone who attends a Storm game. And of course, that's the response that you expect from a team, is to say, hey, we're in line with whatever the league wants to do here. But overall, it's a terrible look, right? Like that, whether you agree with the viewpoint or not, and obviously we're going to get into some of that, but there's no place for that, right? Like you're allowed to have your opinion regardless of what it is. And as long as you aren't harming somebody else, that's fine. Like you're not free to, I always laugh about freedom of speech in the way of, people think that freedom of speech alleviates you from freedom of consequence, right? But if you are just putting your viewpoint out there, it requires nothing for you to just keep it pushing, right? Like you don't have to engage. And that's where this really devolved, is you had, people our age going after these teenage girls, yelling at them and stuff. And there's plenty of video. I was going to bring it on, but I was thinking that, maybe we didn't need to go that far into it. But they're easy enough to find, Googling it, especially now, just because it's grabbing so much attention. Welcome in, everybody. So, but then it really does spur a real question. So Sophie was specifically talking about trans in women's sports. So biological men transitioning into women, playing in women's sports. And she did put out a statement after the fact that, hey, you know, whether you are gay, straight, trans, whatever, like, you have a seat at my table. So like, it's not a hate towards them or anything like that. It's just it's an unfair advantage in women's sports. And that's actually where I actually agree with her, right? Is men are just biologically built different. So when you're looking at some of the, you know, if I remember right, there was a sprinter that, you know, in the men's, he was ranked like 500th in the world. But then moving over to the women's side, he was top 5, right?
112. He was 112th in
112. Okay.
112th in men's. And moving over, he wound up, I think he was number 2 or 3.
Yeah, I remember he was top 5. And so you ended up with, you know, quite a few of them over the years. And again, this is where it's tough, because you don't want to make it so they can't play sports, right? I remember there's been a couple of swimmers, you know, Leah Thomas for I forget. It was back in 22. Like, it wasn't that long ago. But there's been quite a few over the years. And it really does bring that question is, should they be able to compete in women's sports? It's such a weird situation. I think we're getting to a spot where they can almost have their own bracket, because I don't want to see a biological man setting women's records, because they just have a distinct advantage. Now, they haven't done it so far, but I mean, people will say, oh, well, that's ridiculous. It's like, okay, we'll say LeBron decided to transition, right? You destroy the WNBA. Like, you know, so you don't get to pick and choose, right? You got to make a rule that's all encompassing. And so that's where this conversation gets interesting, is how do you address that situation? Because you don't want to keep them from being able to play sports. It's not like they're less of a human or anything like that. Like, I have some personal friends that have gone through the entire transition, surgeries and all. And we've actually had conversations like this. It's like, well, where do you fall on this? And that is a kind of a split thing, because on one hand, they you know, they want to be able to compete just like everybody else. At the same time, there is a distinct advantage if they are competing against women. And correct, you're all human. And that's why I say, like, this has nothing to do with the human rights end of it, right? Like, you should absolutely be able to go do whatever it is you want to do. When it comes to this, that's where it's tough, because, you know, if we were powerlifting and you had a biological man that transitioned, he's going to have a distinct advantage over women. We just have a different muscle structure and build, and you're inherently stronger. So it's very interesting.
So I preface this in a couple of different ways. I mean, so I have to compartmentalize this a little bit.
Sure.
And the hardest part about this is that you have Sophie now, who is, for all intents and purposes, the face of the WNBA. You know, she has pointed herself. You know, it's funny. Yeah, in essence, she's kind of appointed herself the face of the WNBA, whether she wants it or not. You know, so ultimately, her opinion is allowed to be her opinion, and I can appreciate that in that respect. And in a way, she's speaking for women in general. And I will say that in the grand scheme of things,
Mhm.
that it's, you could say that, and I use this word loosely or a little bit, that if you go by the levels of oppression in the United States over time,
Okay.
that you could say that people of color were oppressed and women have been oppressed, and
No
that
question.
it kind of went in that order. Like it was like oppressed men of color,
Yeah.
and then women were under that. So the fact that women are starting to get, and right now I would say that we are specifically at a time in our, where I would say that women of color are even a little bit higher than white women at the moment, but women as a whole are jumping up that ladder. That
Yeah.
ladder is starting to climb to more equality. And I understand what she's saying and how she is putting this, in terms of we have to protect this. We
Yes.
haven't gotten to the point now where it's like everybody's 100% equal. And now we're starting to figure out the when somebody wants to switch sides, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not taking it away from the person itself. That person has the right to be able to feel and do whatever it is that they want to do.
Mhm.
However, if you were born a male,
Yeah.
physically a male,
Yeah.
and you choose to go by how you personally feel,
Mhm.
not what your gender that you were born with explains. Now, and
Sure.
I'm not going into the scientific. I'm not going to go. This is at the very. I'm keeping this at the very simple at the moment.
Yeah.
So let's keep this. You were born a normal male. As like as normal could be in terms of physical,
Yep.
and you have decided to transition
Okay.
to female because of your mental state.
Sure.
Now, going the other way, let's go the other way. Women who feel that they are male
Okay.
are not forced or pushed to have to play in the men's sports. These
Yeah.
women, those women are still considered women.
Mhm.
They may identify as male. However, they are still biologically women, and in those sports, they would still compete as women.
Yeah.
And it, let's face it, I'll say with, you know, before the last 20 years or so, like within the last 2 decades before that, most of the women that competed in athletics had very strong male traits.
Sure.
Just I'm not saying everybody, I'm not putting everybody in the same basket, but that there was a lot more that had, you know that could
I,
have
I like
identified more as male.
I like that you're just trying to get canceled this morning. It's fine.
So, but they didn't you didn't force them to have to play. They played women's softball, they didn't play men's baseball, and they weren't forced to play men's baseball even if they identified as men.
Sure.
It is a new thought process. When I say new, within the last 20 years,
Yeah.
that uh, that the member of the trans community deserves to be heard above anyone else. And that's where I feel our question becomes. This is where the question actually sits, is that at what point does somebody's human rights start to infringe upon somebody else's human rights? And then at that point, who's in the right?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like this particular argument isn't necessarily going after the human rights end of it. Um, but yeah, I mean, like that's true for anything though, is you should be able to do whatever you want as long as it doesn't infringe on anyone else, right? Like you can, I don't care what you do. As long as it doesn't negatively impact my life, who cares? Go live it up, have fun. Do whatever it is you want to do. Be who you want to be.
However,
if it starts
but now,
negatively affecting other people,
but see, you are not a, and I'm going to keep it out of the high schools. So we're going to go into college here. So
sure.
This is going to be 18 and above. I do
Yeah.
not want to get into the discussion of 18 and below.
No. Definitely
I
not.
feel like that's a whole different world, and I don't, I have stronger feelings about that.
Yeah.
That being said, so now you are a 19-year-old girl who is the 10th person on a level 2 division 2 college basketball team.
Okay.
And this school now decides that they will allow transgender to athletes to be able to compete in a way. Like, so because of that, because this school makes the announcement, there are 3 transgender athletes that show up as and want to play basketball. Team only holds 12.
Yeah. No, now you're off the team.
So now you're off the team. You know what I mean? And I feel that is we've hit that note.
Yeah.
So
no, and I mean those things happen. So why I brought up Leah Thomas earlier, right? Is she held University of Pennsylvania records, won the 500 yard freestyle champion, right? So or meter. So I mean it's those types of things. It's just like, okay, well, now you're setting records that might be unattainable, right? And so all of a sudden those don't feel the same anymore. And that's where that argument comes in for, does there need to be a transgender bracket? And before, obviously, there just wasn't enough athletes to even be able to do that. I think we're getting to a spot where you almost can. So does there need to be a men's, a women's, and a trans bracket? Maybe.
I would say, at least if not that the NCAA will ever be able to make any stance that makes anything, legitimate. You know what I mean?
Well,
And
NCAA finds ways to do everything wrong anyway. So,
so I would look at it. I personally feel that if you choose to transition, your gender, it's that comes with, hey, you are no longer allowed to, you could do, like I said, you could go ahead and play intramural sports. You could do a lot of different things, but you are no longer eligible for that. If I'm a guy and I decided that I want to transition to be a woman, I unfortunately, by making that transition, I am unable to play in those sports in that manner. I have to now step down. It's like I'm now doing intramural, or if there are different, yeah, like I said, one-on-one sports are a little different. However, I always reference that one guy. He was a guy, and went to jail a few times. He was like, and then transitioned to a woman,
Yeah.
and then became a women's boxer. He was a men's boxer, and he wasn't doing so great. Became a women's boxer, and literally almost killed 3 women, because now he was, uh, you know, still physically a male, although his transition happened to remove parts. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You
No,
don't remove all the muscles that
that's the
come with
problem.
you being a guy.
That's the problem.
That's the issue.
Yeah. And that's my issue with it is, just the body construction of it is you're bigger and stronger. Like it's just natural genetic disposition. So that's where you get that unfair advantage. Now, obviously, when you're transitioning, there's other elements that limit your ability to utilize some of that, right? Like you're taking supplements and all of those things. I get it. It doesn't change the way you were originally constructed. And so that's always been my issue with it. Otherwise, like I don't want them to have any limitation on being able to compete. I just don't want to see you setting a women's record as a biological guy. And so then you run into that weird spot. Like, are you forced to play with the men because that's how you were born? Obviously that makes the most sense just off the top of your head. But that's why I say, like, you're almost getting to a spot where you could have that third bracket. Years ago, probably not. In today's society, I think you could probably actually make that work. So, I don't know that there's a right answer to it at the moment, but all I do know on my end of it is having them competing and setting records on the women's side. I can't get behind that because again, you're giving them an easier path to that. And that's not to take away from any of the women.
Here's the bigger problem I have is at the beginning of your statement that these 2 young girls who have an opinion at 16 years old, these girls are 16, and they have chosen to protect their gender, that they are women, that they are in Seattle, which was the bigger surprise here. Like listen, out of all the places in the country to think that there was going to be this type of hate that was thrown just because you think that just because I'm for the transgender and I'm 100% for transgender, that I am allowed to throw that type of hate towards somebody who feels differently.
Exactly.
That's not correct. And to bring that all the way up to the ownership, I understand. I get it. You have friends that are into this mix and whatever. I am allowed to have my own opinion. I am allowed to feel a certain way. So are other people, and they should still be able to feel safe. Seattle, of all places, felt very strongly about that with pride and all this other stuff. But now I feel like that even Seattle, that pride is taking a different thought process. Now, if you are a gay man and you are for listen, I feel the same way. I feel that if you transition from male to female, that you exclude yourself from female sports. That's it. You have done that because until you can remove, there's women have, I think, is it like 486 muscles, and men have like 564. Like there's like 80 different muscles that are there that are more than just the thing that you're removing. You know what I mean? To be able to transition. So That's the
I'm
problem.
not sure about
You
that, but
still
I'm definitely gonna
cannot.
Google it.
Yeah, I could be way off. So I'm gonna switch this up a little bit. In arm wrestling, when I was in arm wrestling and I went to the world championships, there was an athlete. She was from Turkey. She was literally 100%. She was born in that, like, she would have transitioned. Her body was born male. She had female parts. That's how that came out. Like, just
Sure.
that's what was born.
Yeah.
Every event that every time she arm wrestled, she got tested. And it just was 100%. And it said the same thing over and over again, that she's not taking any steroids. She's
Mhm.
not taking any of the supplements. This is the way that she was created out of the womb. So
And
there's that.
both have about the same muscle count.
They do.
Yep.
Okay, then what would be considered the difference? Is it just the testosterone? Is it the estrogen? Is it the, like, how many other? I thought that there was a significant difference. But
No,
let me finish my point here with the
yeah.
arm wrestling. There are a couple of guys, though. You have the one guy, they call him Popeye. His one arm is 5 times larger than his other arm.
Sure.
There was another guy, his left arm only. He was born with an additional muscle that connected his shoulder to his wrist.
Okay.
That guy was the best arm wrestler because he had a whole different muscle. So guess what? He was allowed to compete because he's still competing. His
Yep.
right arm, no good because it didn't have that extra muscle. Made a
Sure.
big difference, huge difference. Same thing with Popeye, the German guy. He arm wrestled right-handed, but there was no arm wrestling left-handed and that was a twig.
Yeah.
It's like Monster Twig. It was like that old commercial. I think the Skittles commercial. We'll do it in the old-fashioned way, or whatever it is. I bring that up because there's always situations that create, some people being better than others,
Sure.
and that there are going to be physical attributes that people are born with and genetics that create situations that make people better athletes than others.
Sure. Well, I
It's,
mean,
it's
that's like the people that are, great marathon runners that don't end up with generating the lactic acid that other people normally do, and so they can run longer for faster. And, like, I mean, there's always random genetic anomalies that allow some of the most elite athletes to be that. It's different when it's a whole different gender and you're just predisposed to being bigger, stronger, because although the muscle count is similar, yeah, you do have the testosterone factor of it, obviously, but you're also just built bigger in general, right? So the muscles are bigger inherently, which is why, when you see someone that transitioned as a power lifter lifting in the women's side, you're probably going to win. Like, I mean, you just have this predisposition to being able to be bigger and stronger. Like, that just
right, and it's not your fault, I guess. But
yeah,
I feel that the moment that you create that transition, that exclude yourself from any
mhm.
of those situations. So this brings us back to when they were about to start the elite games, or what it was,
Oh, the
what
enhanced games, yeah,
the enhanced games. I feel like that's where this really goes. That's where this falls into play. That there should be, let's all right, we can't level the playing field for what's been created, you know, but let's level the playing field for you to be able to compete in a way that you want to compete.
yeah,
You know, that's where I think that's where that falls. That you no longer, is it? Is it, oh, now you're excluding them? Well, you know what? If I'm an amputee, I'm excluded because unfortunately I lost a limb. You know what I mean? I am automatically put into a different category. If I'm blind and can't see, guess what? I'm in a different category than everybody else, and I'm
Sure.
excluded because of that. I didn't have a choice in that if I'm blind. I didn't have a choice in most cases with the loss of a limb.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I am now forced into that category. You have a choice. What,
I
and
mean,
it'd be a difficult choice. I get. This
so
is
but that's true to a degree. I mean, because they do have things like the Paralympics and stuff like that, where amputees do, like, sprinters, right? Like there was a real famous sprinter that I think he was missing both legs below the knees, ran on blades, ended up being kind of a dirtbag and going to jail, but um, but at the same time was a really fast runner, sprinter. So, I mean, even those types of things, they still have the ability to compete. And I think that's where we run into kind of a weird thing. Cause I don't think you should, because you feel like you were born the wrong way, you're just absolved from being able to compete, which is why I think maybe we are finally getting to a spot where there's enough trans people to have their own division. Now,
well,
obviously,
it's
you wouldn't be able to get there in like the WNBA type of that level of stuff, but I'm certainly in college, right? College campuses are big enough for something like that.
well, and I think about this. All right, let's switch it a little bit. I'm going to go back to the amputee kind of situation. The
Sure.
wrestler, the 150-pound wrestler who's only got one leg,
Okay.
going up against the 150-pound wrestler who's got both legs.
Sure.
It's again, now it's like, okay, well, he's got to do that, but now he's actually the one-legged guy has got a significant advantage because he's got more muscle mass, he's got more strength because he's
Yeah. Well, there's that. Yeah. Yeah.
right,
Upper body
he's
wise,
missing a
no question.
leg. He's missing a leg. When they question this, when they put this out there, like, well, he should be able to compete, he should be able to do this, and so on and so forth. Uh, there people are finally like, well, how do I compete against this? So they had to. He didn't compete. He wasn't able to compete
Yeah.
because you're not able. It's almost not fair,
Yeah.
and
He's too
that's
big.
what this is creating. That's what
He,
this is creating.
that one makes sense because, at 150, yeah, he would be structurally much bigger
Significantly stronger.
everywhere else, right?
Right.
But if you put him in a weight class where he's similar build, then not having the limb,
A
obviously.
heavyweight where there's 300 pounds, or you can go to unlimited weights. Now all of a sudden it's a different scenario. Somebody could have 350 pounds or a 40-pound difference, and you're going to have a different comparison.
Well, not only that, but
That's
that's where not having that other leg really comes in, because you're not going to be able to overpower up top.
correct.
So, yeah,
So
no,
there's that. That's now I'm using that as the example because again, we're talking about women
yeah,
who, again, we've said don't have the same molecular structure as men.
yeah,
So we're going on the 100% biological cell to cell route
yeah,
of this conversation. And I don't know that part is actually, I think, the simple part. I feel like that most people should understand that. It may not align with the way that you believe
sure,
should happen, but on the cell to cell route, that you would feel that there should be the same, like that there should be equal competition. That's what you're talking about. That's what Sophie is talking about.
correct.
That this needs to be equal competition, and just because you've chosen as a man to identify as a woman and have taken steps to be able to complete that
Yeah,
does not give you, like I said, I'm 115th competing against men. I'm second
yeah,
competing against women.
exactly.
And that's not fair. It's not fair. And just because that you feel that way, hey, listen, you have the right to do whatever you want to your body, and I am 100% for that. Once you are of age to be able to make your own decisions.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's like that's why I say, and in the United States, at the moment, they're choosing that age to be 18. So I feel that that's a real thing. At 18 years old, you can make your own decisions. That's where everything should start in that regards for yourself. You know.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. Like it, and again, it's just for fair competition. That's where it has a sticking point for me. Outside of that, like all of the human rights end of it, yeah, you do you. Like, why would that shouldn't matter to anybody, right?
But the fact that Seattle acted this way towards these girls,
that's the surprising part.
This is you're supposed to be open-minded and whatever, and just because I choose to not think the same way you do, the fact that you're spitting on these girls, like I'm going to spit on you.
That wasn't the ownership.
Obviously, I understand that, but anybody spitting on those girls, like that guy or that person, should get beat. They should get beat.
No question.
You know what I mean?
Certainly shouldn't be allowed back in that stadium. Like, what are you doing? Like, these are teenage girls that are sticking up for, them in their own sports. I mean, I don't see why something like that is offensive, because they weren't saying anything about the trans community.
And it was just the T-shirt
and a sign. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I only saw the T-shirts parts. I didn't.
Well, they were holding a sign that basically was in support of Sophie, which, okay. Again, you're allowed to do that, right? I mean, think of how many times you see signs that are like "Cowboys suck." Nothing happens to those signs, right? Like, and that's more directed than this was. This is just, hey, we want to protect our sport. We want women in women's sports. Fair enough.
End of story. That's just what I'm saying. I am, and just because I believe that, and here and my thing is that not only that, it's likely, that they also are very pride friendly. I don't know these girls from anybody,
sure,
but I can imagine that they are also, because they grew up in Seattle and they felt a certain way. Well, how pride friendly are you going to be now? After that, like how much am I going to be interested in taking the side in anything else beyond that because of the way I was treated on this? Oh, because I feel a certain way here, I have to, everything, like it said, I agree with everything over on this side. I feel this about this. Now, all of a sudden, because you acted the way you did, now I changed some of my thought process on this. I am not as excited to be able to support you guys here because of the way I was treated, because I just felt.
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be. Way. You always, especially when it comes to Seattle, you always expect it to be very inclusive. The WNBA, you expect to be very inclusive, right? Like that's, sorry about the stray there, buddy. But, you expect those things to be inclusive. And what they were saying was not negative towards any of the LGBTQ community.
Right.
Like there was nothing derogatory towards that, that end of anything. Like it was just literally keeping women in women's sports.
It was girls trying to empower women. Yeah. And the fact that the LGBTQ community, who specifically, like, I'm not going to put everybody from that community.
I was going to say a very small window of it. Let's not burn the whole community.
Yeah, but that was not the case. And the truth of the matter is that it's probably supporters that really don't even have that skin in the game. I find that the ones that speak the loudest have no skin in this. They just like talking loudly.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how most of the time this goes. Oh, the person who spit is probably not trans. You know,
Oh, that's
they
fair.
may be part of the LGBTQ community, but they likely, and I find this most of the time to be true, are just people that are trying to start more stuff.
Yeah.
So, my man.
So, since we're just making people mad today, let's go ahead and take a look at Shedeur Sanders.
That is a big transition.
Hey, we're all about transitions here today. So, so this one here, now I will go ahead and preface this with he did actually have the best day in camp of the quarterbacks on the roster, but this might be one of the funnier pass breakups because this was the least effort you could have had from a defensive player to create that situation. So here we go. So you see the defender in the middle, standing straight up, arm up, and he throws it straight into his palm. It absolutely hilarious. Let's back this up just a little bit. So you can see him just standing in the middle, not rushing, not moving, literally nothing, straight into his hand. And this would be funny whether it was Shedeur or not. Like any quarterback that throws into that coverage is, I mean, that's just hilariously terrible.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, listen, it happens. He's like, yeah, and just tosses it, trying to lead somebody. It just so happens to hit his hand. I don't look at it as anything beyond that.
There's nothing to it. It's just funny.
The fact that the guy was like, yeah.
I mean, imagine being the coach and be like, hey, I want to see you pressing and trying and whatever. And then you look at the film and you're like, I mean, that was as good of an outcome as you could have got, though. Like, I mean, you know, zero effort or max effort. You still broke the pass up. So I guess cool, whatever. And then, of course, we have Brandon Ayuk constantly in the mix of things. This time around, though, this was a press conference with the coach and the GM. And this sure makes it sound like he's burned his bridge to go to Washington.
Evaluating guys to maybe bring in for workouts, whatever. What role, if any, does kind of a player's social media have in that evaluation process?
That's a good roundabout question.
What a badass you are. Straight badass right there.
But no, we look at everything, JP. I mean, it's a great question, but we do look at everything, and you know, we want to make sure it's the right player to be in our locker room, in our bloodstream, and in our culture.
So no. He did go on to say that they don't usually look at it, and then paused for a second and was like, usually. So definitely playing a role in this one. I'm guessing we might have seen the last of Brandon Ayuk in the NFL.
I don't think so. I think that he is going to, I think eventually he's going to show up at 49er camp.
I mean, he has to. If he wants to force his way off or continue getting paid at all, he has to at least show up and fill out the paperwork.
Right.
Has to at least do that. So anyway, I thought it was hilarious because their response is like, okay, well played. Right.
Good question. That's a great way of being able to bring somebody up that's
without directly, well, and it makes them answer it, right? Because if you're just like, what's the Brandon Ayuk? It's not a situation because he's not on our team, right? Like, it's easy to get away from that one. Asking it the way he did was actually very smart because they're like, okay, well, we have to answer it. Well played, sir. And then one other, we got Baker Mayfield feeling disrespected because they can't get a deal together. Tampa sure looks like they are going to make people play out their last year of their contracts and start a rebuild based on Vita Vea not getting a deal, wanting to get out of there. Baker Mayfield now doesn't have a deal moving forward, playing in the last year of his deal. So this is Baker.
To feel disrespected a little bit, understanding what I've brought to this franchise. One, I'm very, very thankful for the chance they gave me. Do not get me wrong on that. But I've also I really know what I've brought to this franchise, leadership-wise, and even play-wise. It's been some of the best years of my career, and I think it's only going to trend upwards, just being comfortable and feeling that. So disappointing in that regard to not have, to feel disrespected a little bit. And that's really the disappointing part, to feel undervalued.
Not the first time in his career, but
So here's what I got to say.
Okay.
2027, Baker Mayfield starts for the Arizona Cardinals.
Okay. I actually wouldn't hate that fit, honestly.
I think that's where he goes. I think that the fact that they have chosen to go this route, that is like that. Those statements is like, hey, listen, you got me for 1 year left. That's exactly what I just heard there. I'm here for one more year, and I'm gonna ball out, and everybody else who's looking for a quarterback, come find me because I'm gonna be ready to sign.
So, and he said that in a kind of roundabout way in other pressers. They just couldn't include them all here because, well, it'd be 20 minutes of Baker talking. But, he did say that he had set a deadline that at the beginning of camp, there's no more negotiating on his end. So he is just focusing on football at that point. Obviously, the beginning of camp is come and gone. So that's it. He's like, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. It's just football moving forward. He also said that the fact that they didn't get it done will be more expensive moving forward because I'm going to have a good year, right? And so he's betting on himself, and whether he ends up getting an extension after this season with the Bucs or he plays somewhere else, you can argue that he's played every bit as good as any of the other guys that are making $50 million a year, whether it's Trevor Lawrence or Love or Tua or any of those guys, right? In fact, you can say he played better. He's actually won a playoff game. So I think he'll get paid. Doesn't seem like it's going to be in Tampa, though.
Yeah, and I would also keep an eye. I mean, there's already been some season-ending injuries. I mean, I saw another, I think somebody on the Titans had an LCL. They're done for the season. Yep. The first quarterback that goes down in camp, and the first true number one quarterback that goes down in camp, I would consider that. Also, I would keep an eye on Denver. I
don't think he'd want to do that
with Denver.
He's not going to want to go somewhere to be a backup.
No. They had that. He had the injury at the end. How ready is he?
Oh, it was a broken ankle. He's fine.
So he's ready to go. That's what I'm saying. I would pay attention though, because I think that there is a disconnect between quarterback and coach there.
Okay.
And just you would pay attention to it, is what I'm just saying. I'm not far out, but I think that Denver, out of all the teams, and if you want to talk about Sean Payton and his relationship with quarterbacks, none of the quarterbacks there have had bright and shiny feeling from him. And it wouldn't, you want to talk about possibly. All right. I mean, he's gotten, what's his name, was traded, right? I mean, he's on rookie contract still, their quarterback there.
What, Bo Nix?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's still on his rookie deal.
So, and he's got 2 years left on that?
Oh, if they pick up the 5th year, yeah, I think so.
So I think again that's what's intriguing to me, because they could play. Now you've got Tampa Bay, who, if they're not trying to spend any money on a quarterback just yet, and they want to figure out what's going on,
I
and
think they like Knicks though.
I'm sure they do. Like I said, I again, it's something I'd pay attention to.
Yeah, I mean, they were
I am
broken
not
ankle away from. I mean, because they would have beat New England. So I mean, they were a broken ankle away from going to the Super Bowl. I don't think they're trying to move on at quarterback. Your assessment of Arizona, though, I could see that, because I don't think they have their quarterback of the future in the building.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, we see Steelers. Yeah, the Steelers could fall into that category. And
He'd actually be, culture-wise, he would be a good Steeler QB, because he is that try-hard guy, right? Like, he just gets out there and battles and plays injured, and like, he wants to win. Like that,
and he knows that division really well.
Yeah.
So I mean, I know that there's been a lot of turnover in that division since he's been gone, but like he knows that division pretty well.
I think he would have a special place in his heart to want to beat the Browns a couple times a year.
Right. But you know what? I tell you, I look at what's going on in Tampa, and I'm saying, well, the Saints win that division.
Oh, you don't think the Panthers could pull it? Or
Nope. I think the Panthers are the Panthers, and I think that the Panthers are. I think the Panthers are an 8-9 team, and I think that the Saints are a better team than that. I think that the Saints win 10 games. And I think
Atlanta gets a quarterback, like if they can figure their quarterback situation,
Atlanta gets in Atlanta's way. I think there's something 100%. About playing in Megatron's butthole that you just automatically does not compute well. There's something in the water, something in the air, something about being in Atlanta that just doesn't work as a football team. And I'm not, it's kind of the same thing that surrounds the Jets, it surrounds the Browns, and then surrounds the Raiders. I feel like that also surrounds Atlanta. Okay. And so I'm not giving Atlanta the benefit of the doubt. I think that Atlanta hasn't earned it, at least.
They're on a prove it deal. I'm with you. I mean, they've managed to mismanage their roster the last few years. So I mean, I get it.
And you have the guy who learned how to lose really well. Now the coach over there.
Yeah. I never hold it against you too much if you don't have great success with the Browns or the Jets, just because as an organization, they find ways to self-sabotage, even if you have talent. So I always look for anybody's next stop after those locations, right? I mean, when you think of Hall of Fame level guys that coached in those locations, you think of Bill Belichick being with the Browns. You think of Pete Carroll being with the Jets. Like they, I think those organizations are messed up enough that I never count a bad experience there against them.
Oh, maybe
now what he does in Atlanta, that'll be telling, because you can win in Atlanta. You may not win. You may not win at all, but you can at least win. And that's not something we've been able to say about the Browns or the Jets in a long time. That being said, we are up against it time-wise. So wherever you are, however you may be listening, be sure to like and subscribe, whatever platform you are on. And of course, if you're listening on 97.3 ICU Radio, stay tuned for some smooth jazz coming your way as we, tone it down from the topics that we had to kick this one off. Other than that, we will see you all next week. Enjoy your weekend. Take it easy, everybody.
Peace.